This is Karen. She works in an office with her boyfriend, Jim. What Karen doesn't know is that Jim is fully in love with another woman and has been the entire time they've been dating. It's this woman. Her name's Pam. She also works at the office. See, Jim and Pam have kind of a history and a lot of unresolved tension between them. But nobody informed Karen about any of this before she started dating Jim. So through no fault of her own, Karen became an innocent bystander in the crossfire of Jim and Pam's emotional baggage. And I want to tell you this story so I can lend my voice to the growing number of modern viewers demanding justice for Karen. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
And Karen did nothing wrong. So if you didn't know, we're talking about a show called The Office. Let's start from the beginning. Before Karen is even in the picture, we have Jim and Pam who work together in an office, and they're really close and they're always flirting. They have a little work crush on each other, but over time it turns into much more than a crush. Like, they have obviously fallen in love with each other. The problem is that Pam is kinda already engaged to this dude, Roy, who also works in the office. Well, he works in the warehouse below the office. I was gonna make a joke about how unrealistic it is that all these coworkers are fucking each other, but it's actually pretty accurate in my experience. Here's the thing though, Pam and Roy have been engaged for 3 years. They're really procrastinating on planning that wedding. In reality, Pam's a little hesitant to marry Roy, mostly because he kinda sucks.
Ew. What the hell is this? What, are you trying to cup a feel or something?
No, dude.
Also, the fact that Pam wants to take Jim to the bone zone is probably part of her hesitation as well. But eventually, Pam and Roy try to work things out.
Pam, I think enough is enough. I think we should set a date for our wedding. June 10th. Come on, let's do it.
Jim is devastated, of course, and he's about to give up on Pam, but then he gets some bad advice from his boss, Michael, that gives him some bad ideas.
She's engaged.
BFD, engaged ain't married.
Huh.
Never, ever, ever give up.
So Jim figures that he's got to make his move before Pam gets married, and boy does he make his move.
Listen, Jim.
Okay, I'm talking about this kind of flippantly, but I have to admit that I was once extremely invested in this relationship. Like, I cannot ever remember caring more about two fictional people than when I first got into The Office. And this scene was peak television at the time. Anyway, Pam clearly enjoys the moment, but she decides she's still gonna marry Roy. She still rejects Jim after all of this. And Jim's widow heart just can't take it. Jim can't even bear working with Pam anymore. It's just too sad for him. So he transfers to another branch in an entirely different state. The dude literally skips town. At first, Jim has a little trouble fitting in at the new office, but he eventually forms a friendship with this person, Karen Filippelli. I'm pretty sure they made her Italian so they wouldn't have to deal with the politics of Jim dating a woman of color. Karen and Jim get along really well. They kind of share the same sarcastic sense of humor.
We're just trying to get these chips for Karen. Did you check the vending machine?
Oh, the vending machines. How do we miss that?
I have no idea. We went right for the copier, and then we checked the fax machine.
And in the 2000s, aloof, shaggy-haired white dudes were all the rage. So Karen pretty much immediately develops a crush on Jim.
I mean, I don't think he's into me or anything, but I'm kind of into him.
This was Karen's first mistake. I know I said Karen did nothing wrong, and by that I mean Karen did nothing to deserve the stress that Jim will eventually put her through. We'll get to it. But I do want to acknowledge moments where Karen could have made a better decision and potentially avoided the Jim and Pam train wreck. I found a total of 3 L's that Karen took in this story, the first of which was falling for this dude in the first place. Karen is way too sensible and smart to have fallen into this trap. She even kind of calls Jim out after she first meets him.
He's always looking at the camera like this. What is that?
I think she can tell that Jim pretends to be above it all, even though it's obvious that he wants validation and approval more than anyone else. But he is also genuinely kind and charming and funny, so I kind of get it, I guess.
My snack food doesn't fall under the umbrella of your authority.
That's where you're wrong. I'm your project supervisor today, and I've just decided that we're not doing anything until you get the chips that you require.
Jim and Karen's friendship eventually blossoms into a romantic relationship. So about 4 months go by, and one day Jim and Karen's manager suddenly resigns because he got a better job offer. But he does it in kind of a shady way, and it was a big surprise to everyone. So the company has to do some emergency restructuring. Long story short, that office gets completely shut down, and some of the workers, including Jim and Karen, get transferred to another branch. And guess what branch they get transferred to?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Pam.
Karen, I love your sweater.
Oh, thanks. My mom made it for me.
Now, in my personal experience, 4 months is nowhere near enough time for a broken heart to heal. So Jim is extra awkward around Pam, and Pam is extra awkward around Karen for obvious reasons. When this season of The Office first aired, there was this social phenomenon where people proclaimed to be either Team Pam or Team Karen. The writers intentionally made these characters very different from each other. Pam is dainty and artistic, while Karen is more stoic and professional. But really, at the time, there was a correct answer. The show had already spent 2 full seasons convincing us that Jim and Pam were soulmates. Back then, saying you were Team Karen was a little bit cringe. It was kind of like picking the yellow team in Pokemon Go. But in retrospect, Pam already rejected Jim outright, and Karen is a perfectly good girlfriend. She's sweet, loyal, and hardworking. So it turns out that after the kiss with Jim, Pam actually called off her wedding with Roy. And not just that, she broke up with him completely, which I applaud. You probably shouldn't be in a monogamous relationship with someone if you're in love with someone else. Spoiler, that's kind of the gist of this whole video. But Roy has not yet lost all hope.
I gotta win her back.
So Pam is kind of bummed that she now has to see the man she loves with another woman every day, and Jim is still pretty salty about the whole humiliating rejection thing, so they're both pretty much always tense around each other at the office all the time. And remember, Karen doesn't know anything about any of this. She's just trying to get her work done and have a normal relationship. But that relationship is suddenly starting to show cracks. Particularly, Jim is having a hard time with commitment. Shocker.
Yesterday, I saw a for rent sign down the street from Jim, and he said he didn't think it'd be such a good idea. He said it would be like we were living together in different houses.
One day, Pam sees some of her coworkers giving Karen a hard time and so offers some compassion.
Hey, Karen. Sorry about that meeting today. That was really crazy.
Yeah, right? I'm so glad you said that.
When I first saw this, I thought it was really sweet of Pam to try to be nice to Karen in spite of the circumstances. But when you rewatch this show a couple times, you start to realize that Pam is kinda diabolical, and sometimes in very subtle ways. See, earlier that day, Pam tried to have some fun with Jim, like they used to back in the day. They used to joke around and pull pranks and stuff like that together.
I've been sending Dwight letters from the CIA.
Are you serious?
But Jim, being a sad boy, pretty much blew her off, which was really embarrassing for her.
I really don't think I should be doing this stuff anymore, though.
Oh.
Not just because of the promotion.
Oh,
It just feels a little bit like,
No, I get it.
Next thing we know, she's getting close to Karen, something she knows will be uncomfortable for Jim, not to mention also uncomfortable for Karen if anyone would bother to tell her what's going on. Does she not deserve to know? Karen eventually does find out, but only because of a random comment from another one of their coworkers.
So glad you were Jim. He was hung up on Pam for such a long time. I didn't think he'd ever get over her.
That's nice.
So Karen immediately talks to Jim about it, like a mature adult should.
Did you ever have a thing for Pam?
Pam? I had a crush on her before I left. And I told her about it, and she didn't feel the same way. So it didn't amount to anything, and I left. I'm really glad you're here. Okay?
This is the face of someone who's being emotionally manipulated. She's got a weird hairdo in this episode, don't worry about it. I'm not counting this as an L, by the way, because at this point, Karen is doing the best she can with the information that she's been given. But now she is a little bit paranoid, which I remind you is justified. And she starts to notice that Jim and Pam are becoming more and more buddy-buddy with each other like they used to be. And Karen's all like, well, that's weird that he would be hanging around her like this right after the conversation we just had. Seems a bit insensitive. So she confronts him again.
Do you still have feelings for her?
Yes.
But Karen is a mature adult, and in adult relationships, you don't just immediately break up whenever there's a problem. You try to see if you can work towards a solution. So Karen decides to try and work things out with Jim. But in order for it to be an adult relationship, there needs to be two adults present. This is Karen's second mistake. Not only is Jim in love with another woman, which in and of itself would be a deal breaker for most people, but he hid that fact from you and then lied about it when confronted. Come on, Karen. He ain't the one. Karen even goes and talks to Pam about this whole thing because Karen is apparently the only person in this equation that's actually trying to resolve the conflict. But I gotta say, I don't think Pam's response brought Karen any more comfort.
Wait, you're not still interested in him?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, no. I was confused by your phrasing.
But it looks like Karen and Jim are really gonna try to figure this out. Or at least Karen's gonna try to figure this out. Who knows what Jim's doing? This makes Pam sad, of course, but guess who's right there to cheer her up?
Hey, you want to get out of here?
I've been dissing Pam a little bit, but this is actually pretty sad when she leaves this wedding reception with Roy, even though you can tell that's not really what she wants. Made me feel icky. Okay, so picture this, a game show where 6 people travel across America competing for a grand prize. But there's a twist. There's a double agent among them, secretly sabotaging all the challenges the entire time. You might be thinking, yeah, that's been done before, but double twist. What if you secretly told all 6 competitors that they were the only saboteur? Well, you can find out on Nebula's new exclusive series, The Getaway. The first few episodes have already come out and it's exactly as hilarious as you would expect. If you're still unaware, Nebula is our creator-owned and operated video platform, and The Getaway is a great example of the extraordinary content this platform allows us to make. Nebula is allowing ambitious creators to make stuff that is just as good, if not better than what you find in traditional media, while dodging all the corruption and exploitation that you might find in those industries. I used to say that Nebula was kind of like an enhanced version of YouTube, and it's true that you can watch regular content from many of your favorite creators ad-free and often days or weeks earlier than when they go live on YouTube. But really, by this point, Nebula is on a whole different level entirely. As a YouTuber, when I'm planning out my content, I often have to think about what works on YouTube. On Nebula, we just make what we want to make. And Nebula helps us make things that we wouldn't be able to make otherwise, like The Getaway, which you should check out by visiting my link, nebula.tv/T1J. If you use that link, you'll get 40% off your subscription. And if you're already a subscriber, you can now gift a Nebula subscription as well. I really think we're changing the game over here at Nebula, and the only reason we can do that is because of you. Now, let's get back to the video because this whole thing is about to unravel. Ultimately, Pam realizes she probably shouldn't be so obsessed with Jim because nothing's probably gonna happen. He's with Karen now. So she actually decides to give Roy another chance. But this time, Pam is a little more assertive and honest about what she wants.
You have to come to stuff with me. I'm serious. If you're gonna be my boyfriend, you have to do boyfriend things.
Okay.
And this inspires her to be honest about some other stuff, which Roy is less receptive to.
I kissed Jim.
What?
He told me how he felt, and I guess I had feelings too, and we kissed.
Jim came on to you?
Just listen.
No, I am listening. That's the problem. I'm listening.
Don't yell.
Don't yell?
Hey, help her!
Hey.
About a month later, all of the office workers go on a beach trip together. And because of the Roy situation, lately Pam has kind of been on this inner journey to be more honest and upfront about her feelings, which I fully support, by the way, but there's a time and a place. For example,
Jim, I called off my wedding because of you. And now we're not even friends. And things are just like weird between us, and that sucks. And I miss you.
It's great to be honest and upfront about your feelings, but that is not some shit you say to someone right in front of their girlfriend. But like I said, sometimes Pam is kind of an evil genius. I think she knows exactly what she's doing. And Karen isn't stupid. She can tell what Pam is doing as well. So Karen kind of goes into a little bit of a panic mode. And honestly, you can't really blame her. This lady is trying to steal her man.
Pam is kind of a bitch.
But I'm still counting this as Karen's third mistake. She has shown poise and emotional intelligence throughout this story, but now it should be clear that Jim is starting to slip away, if he was ever present in the relationship to begin with. And Karen is kind of in denial about it, which is not a good look.
I'm not stupid, okay? I was at the beach. We don't have a future in Scranton. There's one too many people there. No, but you get it, right? Can't stay there.
Yeah. I do.
You may notice how confidently Jim reacts here as opposed to the awkward lying he usually does. That's because he's pretty much already decided to break up with Karen at this point, finally. And a little bit later, he actually sits down with Karen and explains everything and has an actual mature conversation about his feelings. I'm lying. Of course that's not what happened. This is Jim we're talking about. What he actually does is waits for Karen to go to lunch, then immediately goes back to the office behind her back and does this.
Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
All right. Then it's a date.
We see no breakup scene, which leads me to believe that he either did it via text or phone call, or just straight up ghosted her. And Karen, rightfully, is done with all these weirdos. She throws up the deuces and quits the very next day. She then transfers to another branch where she's quickly promoted to manager.
Turns out it's a pretty easy gig when your boss isn't an idiot and your boyfriend's not in love with somebody else.
And Karen, unlike Jim and Pam, knows how to work through her feelings, so she moves on.
This is us.
Oh, he's cute.
Yes, cute. He's a dermatologist. We met at a bar. Can you believe that?
Pam has one last conversation with Karen, but it's not like, hey, I'm genuinely sorry for intentionally sabotaging your relationship. It was more like, please help me feel better about myself for intentionally sabotaging your relationship.
I hate the idea that someone out there hates me. I even hate thinking that Al-Qaeda hates me. I think if they got to know me, they wouldn't hate me. But Karen knows me and she still hates me, so.
Jim and Pam are the worst. Karen was introduced to throw an unexpected complication into the Jim and Pam love story. No one really expected Jim and Karen to actually end up together. But when we think about this story from Karen's perspective, I really think she deserved better.